My face currently feels like I've been run through by Tom Stewart.
Puts it to the top of the square. Oh, beautiful little fist in there by Dale. Crucial centimetre moments.
He definitely has a bit of the Belcho spirit. As I have a bit of the Belcho spirit.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast that, thanks to Essendon winning last week, is now the unfortunate owner of the worst losing streak in football. We are preparing for the news of our coach's retirement to leak a day early, while one of us is on the air chatting about how the coach is all in 2023. Oof. My name is Jack, and with me as always is underrated journeyman, the kind of player coaches love. Not in your best 10, but always in your first 10 picked, and some other cliche for a good but not great footballer. Alistair.
I like to describe the way I play as if Jack Madgen was worse.
Oh, I like that, yeah. This is the back pocket. Welcome back. It's been a crazy few days of football news. Everyone's quitting.
I'm quitting.
You're quitting?
Yeah.
I'm quiet quitting.
I've been quiet quitting for years and years.
You've quiet quit every job you've had. All right, well, we'll jump right into the votes as we do. Who was your one this week?
I don't think he's ever gotten a mention on this podcast before. I don't think we've talked about him once. Maybe once. Robbie Fox.
All right, that's my
one.
two.
Okay,
right,
that works.
I really liked his game.
Yeah. 14 intercept possessions and 12 pressure acts gets you a vote.
It was that, wasn't it? Like,
vote.
Incredible. 8 of those defensive half. Only had 2 one-on-ones, won them both.
I can't believe you didn't mention the interchange thing in your intro. I thought that was prime real estate for it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't make any interchanges, do we?
No.
So we're fine. We're going to be into the game 75-75. We're all good.
I cannot believe that happened.
My note on the Robbie Fox was the defender's defender.
Yeah.
Really good.
It's a shame that he is as old as he is because I really enjoy watching him play.
He started playing his best football in the last few years.
Yeah.
I think he's being utilised properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was really good. They survived a serious scare, and they shouldn't have even. They shouldn't have survived it.
They probably should have lost that.
Had Sheasel kicked that last goal, which was he was kicking harder once than that earlier in the game, and had that interchange not been made, Sydney would be in real trouble right now. But,
yeah.
Luckily for them, they got it done, and sometimes you have to win those games.
Escape some scrutiny.
But, my one was to Nick Vlosten, who I thought was really, really good, especially when the game was on the line in the second half.
Vlosten's always good. I don't think we need to discuss that. 22
disposals and 8 intercepts, 11 marks, 5 of those were intercepts and 2 contested, 4 spoils, 8 pressure acts. His stats were okay to good, but I just think he kept Richmond in that game. I thought his defensive efforts and pressure were excellent when Essendon were really storming at them. Essendon deserved to win that game. They were the better team.
I agree.
But Vlosten was a big part of why Essendon had so much trouble winning that game.
In hindsight, it feels kind of sad that Richmond didn't win, doesn't it? I know at the time you were celebrating it, but it kind of feels sad now, right?
It's like, oh, that's rough.
I feel like he deserved to go out on the win, not the 1 point loss.
With the biggest winning streak in modern history.
Yeah.
But I mean, as we were saying earlier today, you lose to Essendon and you go, maybe that's it. maybe that's where I go.
He just quit before he was sacked, right?
Yeah, like there's been the reason Geelong and Essendon are the top 2 is that Geelong do the embarrassing, like, Leon Cameron last year, 100-point defeat, and he went, I'll call that. Whereas Essendon, you just lose to Essendon and you go, maybe the team is going downhill.
We're really bad at giving votes and talking about the defender, aren't we?
We are. Vlosten was great. You said we don't need to talk about him, so...
I said it doesn't need to be argued
that
he's
true.
good.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Who was your 2 this week?
My 2 is to James Sicily.
Yep, he was a special mention to me, so that's fair.
I was tempted to give him special mention status just because of who they were playing, but Hawthorn is 17th.
He had an awesome game, though.
Hawthorn is 17th. You don't get the discount when you're playing West Coast for them.
Because we thought it was going to be the Hawthorn discount this year. It's really the West Coast discount.
It's the West Coast discount. He had 30 disposals, 11 marks, 11 intercepts, 83% disposal efficiency, 14 pressure acts as a key, and 8 1%ers.
He was probably best on ground.
Probably.
The other special mention I gave from that game was Weddle, who, playing as a defender who was everywhere. He kicked 2 goals, I think, in the first half.
Mitchell should probably also get some...
Yeah, they've got some serious talent going on there.
A bit more than West Coast, I'll say.
That's fair enough. Do you want to jump straight to your 3? Because I gave my 2 to Robbie Fox.
Okay, my 3 is to Charlie Ballard.
Charlie Ballard. Only a special mention for me this week, but he was very good again.
I know they didn't win, but you deserve to be mentioned, or at least get votes, when the general public and commentators have started to talk about how good you are.
Absolutely.
And
Especially
not
as
in a shy
as a
Bolton way.
23-year-old defender playing for the Gold Coast.
Yes.
If you're getting talked about on the regular, you're doing a lot right.
Like, he doesn't have to be flashy. He's just doing his job and doing it well. But 17 disposals, 13 intercepts, 9 pressure acts, 5 1%ers, reasonable disposal efficiency at 76, 9 marks. He did everything he needed to for the Gold Coast. And
Australian is getting tighter now.
there's a lot of keys.
More is there.
More's one.
But
Wilkie's dropping off a little bit.
Yeah, Wilkie's getting filled in by Ballard and a few other players in that area. So it's going to be interesting to see. My 3 votes this week was to Bailey Dale, who had a whopping amount of footy and pretty much all of it in the defensive half. I think I counted 7 of his 36 touches were in the forward half. Only 1 was inside 50. He had 6 rebound 50s and 36 disposals at 89%. He had 8 intercept touches, 9 score involvements, and 535 metres gained. Which, he's played those kinds of games before, but the game that it was to smash Adelaide the way they did, I thought I'd picked Adelaide. I was talking to you about it at the time, and I checked my tipping and went, oh, never mind, I've got that right now. That's fine. It was obviously an accident, but against a really good opponent.
I had a slew of Bulldogs in my special mentions, but you know how I feel about Bailey Dale. I think he's really good, and I have thought that for quite some time when everyone else seemed to think he was terrible. Yeah,
we were arguing with Bulldogs fans about it a few years ago. He spoils in the intro of the show. We love Bailey Dale.
Yeah. So I'll just mention my special mention right now to Liam Jones. Had a very low possession game, but he has been in incredible form.
Ridiculous. He's part of the reason the Bulldogs are going so well. They are currently one of the best backlines in the comp.
Yeah, which is so weird, right?
And they're still beveling it. Like, he's still ripping players in and out of it, and it's performing week in, week out. So take out their round 1 huge loss to Melbourne, and they've been in really good form. I think you can put that down as a Melbourne just have it over them currently, and have since the flag.
Bit of a mind thing.
Outside of that, Bulldogs are travelling much better than I thought they would be. And I think they're going to smash Geelong in a couple of weeks going into the bye with no midfielders.
It's scary going up against them. They can play burst football. They can lock it down. I think they're very good at the moment. Which, if you'd asked me 4 or 5 weeks ago, I probably wouldn't have said it.
Totally agree. And Bailey Smith seems to be back in the form that he was not too long ago. So I think that they're round and about. So that's that. Your 4 now? Your 4.
My 4. Jordan Ridley.
Jordan Ridley's also my 4.
Yep, easy. Done. You talk about him.
He was really good, wasn't he? They needed someone to step up when Richmond started taking over, and it was Ridley. The Bombers snapped both their in-season losing streak of a few games against good sides, and almost more importantly, that 13-game streak it was against Richmond.
13. I saw all the...
Brilliant, and not for the first time this year. We said a couple of weeks ago when Hawkins was just kicking goals at will why they weren't moving him onto it, and then as soon as he did, Hawkins was slowed down. He plays so well against clever opponents, I think. He had 32 touches, 6 rebound 50s, 14 marks, 11 intercept possessions, and 2 score involvements, both of which were score launches. And then just dropping in 4 spoils, 8 pressure acts, and one is only one-on-one he had for the game. He's playing brilliant football, which is good because I feel like last year he had a little bit of a drop-off, whereas this year he seems to be back to the best that we expect from someone like Jordan Ridley.
That's the best I've seen Jordan Ridley play in a couple of years, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm probably discounting some games here and there, but that's the best I've seen him. And it was his first game back from injury, right?
It was more the importance of it, I think, rather than just how good he was. They needed someone to rise up to the occasion, and they've got a lot of injuries at the moment. I think that teams like Geelong, West Coast are getting talked about in terms of injuries. Essendon's kind of not being mentioned in that sentence.
A lot of their midfield's missing.
And they keep, every time they get one back, someone in a similar position seems to drop out.
Yep.
Well done Ridley for stepping up as a leader of that team. He really is becoming a leader of that team too, I think.
He was good from pretty much the outset as well, which is important.
I think it's pretty easy to say who our 5 is.
So let's just move on. Let's just not mention him, right?
A great injustice was committed when he had that mark taken off him. It wasn't a mark, though.
It's not a mark, but I feel like he deserved the record on that game, right?
It's one of the best games I've seen a key defender play flat out ever.
Who?
A key defender?
No, but who is it? Who are we voting for?
Darcy Moore. Nathan Murphy?
Nathan Murphy.
10 intercept marks, 6 contested, 25 touches at 88, 17 total intercepts for the game, which is just ridiculous. He had 8 rebounds and 9 spoils as well.
7 pressure acts, 10
4 tackles. He was everything in that game. Like, there was no way Carlton could go inside 50. I think I put the contested marks in there as well because it wasn't just like they were kicking it to him.
Mm-hmm.
He was crashing packs and coming down with the ball.
It was. I looked at the stats later and I was like, Kerno kicked 3, Mackay kicked 2. Didn't matter.
No. Because
Had
if
nothing to
they
do
weren't
with
hitting them on the lead, Moore was marking.
Had nothing to do with Moore. It was Murphy giving away body on Kerno, but
And Murphy was good again, especially late when Carlton looked like they were trying to press. But Moore is probably the best defender and best captain in the comp right now.
I would agree on both of those.
So it's worrying. He takes the lead with today's votes.
You don't know that.
Of the medal. I do.
It's in a sealed envelope with armor guard.
Oh, sorry. It's definitely not on the website. You can't check it weekly. But yeah.
I check it because I don't write them down.
That's totally fair. But yeah, well done, Darcy Moore. My special mentions this week were to Zerk Thatcher, who I thought was also really good for them.
I also had BZT as a special
Stephen
mention.
May, I put down because he had an insane amount of rebound 50s, but he also took 10 kickouts, and 6 of them led to rebound 50s. It was so he didn't get in from that. Luke Ryan was in there because I thought he did do a pretty good job on Jeremy Cameron, even though he still had 4 shots on goal. And Callum Wilkie, if he's not getting votes, he's getting a special mention. He was good.
Yeah, Wilkie's been good without being great the last couple of weeks. My special mentions are to Miles Bergman.
Yes, yep. We talked about his game.
Obviously, Melbourne Smalls were off. He was on. He had low disposals.
Great game on Cosy Pick. I think 8 of his 9 touches were intercepts.
Yep, that's exactly the truth. I have Radaglia down as a special mention. He was all right.
Tried so hard.
I have both Pierce and Ryan down. Even though Hawkins had a few goals, I thought Pierce was still good.
Yep.
And I got Wilkie as well. So there you go.
Pierce did a few really good things when Geelong looked like they were trying to hit the lead. So I'd agree with that as well. Obviously, the big news of the week is Dimmer.
Is it?
Is it? Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
Yeah, 3-time premiership coach retiring mid-season. That's a pretty big...
It's quitting. He quit.
He
gave up.
Gave up.
No.
He did wonders for that football club. They were a joke before he took them to where they are now.
I think even at the start of his
Absolutely.
tenure, they were...
He almost got sacked that first year they dropped back out of finals. I don't blame him for getting out once it became too much. He doesn't know Richmond anything at all. I also don't, as much as I dislike Tom Morris, I don't think he can be blamed for sharing that news either. That's AFL media. If you've got that story in modern football, you have to share it. The environment is the issue, not Tom Morris. The problem is the person who ratted him out, whoever at the club, which was a small number of people who knew about it. That's the problem. The funniest result is that it was Dimmer. The funniest result is that he's leaked it to the media first and then told the players the next day.
Yeah, no, that didn't happen.
Absolutely not. A thought for back pocket favourite Nathan Broad, who was on the couch being interviewed when they cut to a news break.
Was he? I haven't seen that footage.
Oh, so he's on the couch doing the normal thing, being Broady, giving pretty straight answers to questions. Dixon was even saying to him, is the group, and more importantly, is Dimmer, all in still this year? And Broady's like, yeah, look, obviously, and he's like, obviously Dimmer's been great to me and the boys, yada, yada. And then they're like, and we're going to go to an ad break, and we've got some news from John Ralph or whoever it is. And the news was, breaking news, Damien Hardwick stepping down as Richmond coach. They didn't ask Broady about it, obviously, because that would be...
Cruel.
Weird and cruel. But, yeah, while he was on the show was when the news broke.
Wild.
Yeah.
Part of me kind of wishes they did ask him, but obviously it's probably for the best they didn't.
Yeah, but what a crazy time that would have been.
Yeah. That's bizarre.
Very, very, very strange stuff.
Oh, imagine going on the couch.
Yeah, that's even stranger.
I shouldn't make fun. Bucks has actually been all right this year, and I don't like saying that.
And Dixon's a bit of fun sometimes. Yeah. What a turnaround, though, Richmond have had this year. I feel like they obviously lost a qualifying final or elimination final to a team that ended up in a prelim in the most dramatic of fashions. They brought in Taranto and Hopper and lost very little from their last year's team, had a fit Dusty for round 1. We're running into it as, third or fourth, I think 5th favourites for the flag coming into the season. Lynch goes down early in the year.
We know how important Lynch is.
Start the season, 1 win, 1 draw and 5 losses. And then bank a win against Geelong, obviously get the win against West Coast, and then all of a sudden longest active winning streak in footy's over. Dimmer resigns, and they're half a game out of the bottom 4.
It is strange and tumultuous, but I feel like it might actually be best.
It's better than a coach hanging around for too long, in the way that someone like a Sheedy or even a Worsfold did. I think it's best to get out when the team's still okay. Not you don't want to go from coach of great team to hanging around coach of struggling team. Lee Matthews is another one. He was still there when Brisbane got really bad.
Whoever takes over there has a good core. There's a good defensive core there. Obviously, Vlosten, we talked about.
And great leadership.
Bolter. I mean, Grimes probably doesn't have too many years left, but he'll still be there
Broad's
for a while.
only 30 this year.
Broad as well. And that's not even mentioning players like Short and Baker. I feel like there's still a really good core there, not even getting into the midfield or forward mix.
They have some talented kids there as well.
Maybe it was not just a Dimmer's burnt out. Maybe it is the right thing for them. Because not that the season was over for them. I had them finishing around 10th, 11th, you lower. But I don't know. They've got Taranto and Hopper for 6 and 7 years, is it?
Yeah.
They've got enough time to turn things
With
around, even if they have a year or two low.
And then a few other players like your Ralph Smiths and that coming through. That midfield's going to be fine. Bolton, obviously, is another one.
You got your Sonsies and your, what's his name up forward, who we really like and no one else does? Cumberland.
Cumbo, yeah.
Yeah.
Samson Ryan looks genuinely good. They've got a genuine core coming through.
Is 27, is he?
Younger than we thought he was when we looked up a few weeks ago.
They're fine.
I don't think it's panic stations. I think they're just going to have to do more of a rebuild than I think they were anticipating.
They just have to be smart and not fall into the caretaker coach trap. Don't install your caretaker coach.
I think their plan was to do the Sydney Geelong style reboot while you're still firing. And they've realised at this point of the year, which is why Dimmer stepped aside, that that's not possible. And it's probably a good time to get a new face in. So I do hope I agree. I do hope they don't keep the caretaker coach in charge. Blech, none of those words came out properly. Caretaker coach
in charge,
because it's never really been successful. So we'll see where they go from here.
It'll be interesting, because obviously there's some.
I'm kind of upset it wasn't Teague. I thought it would have been really funny if here we were halfway through this year and Teague and Ratton were in coach of football clubs, but
yeah, that would be strange.
It's not, and it's probably good to have a new face in there anyway.
Where's Bolton at the moment?
I think he's still at Hawthorn, unless Mitchell kicked him out.
No, he's at Collingwood.
He's at Collingwood?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's not coaching anytime soon.
No.
But no, I'm interested to see where they go with their coach because, some of the standout targets, Caracella coached under Hardwick, and you wonder if that might be too similar.
Yeah.
Although he has been pretty successful wherever he's been coaching midfield. Adam Uze was touted.
Yeah, he was very close to getting Jita West's job last year. I think he was the coach off.
And obviously, who knows if Bucks will stay in the media. I feel like he'll go back to coaching. I think he wants to coach again.
Obviously, he had a reasonable record while he was coaching, made a grand final with a very unlikely team.
I don't think Richmond is the right fit for him.
No,
I feel
agree.
like Bucks, unfortunately, might be...
I think Richmond need a...
Gold Coast bound in a couple of years.
Like an exciting, different coach. I think they need someone who brings an energy and a new game style. And McRae's an obvious great example of that. I think
that's
Collingwood.
the blueprint right now.
And it doesn't have to be the style of football. It just has to be someone who is passionate about football, wants the team to buy into a wild, different game plan. There's so much, different sports influence on McRae's game plan in the outside runners, and that there's always two people running together and that kind of stuff. It's all new for football, and that's what makes Collingwood so exciting to watch. And pains, I think, most football fans to say how enjoyable it is to watch Collingwood play football and how much their players are contagiously likeable.
It's frustrating.
Because McRae seems like the nicest bloke, and all those kids coming through, you look at your McCrearys and your Nobles, they're just so much fun to watch play football. So,
I do still feel like it comes down to winning, though, because if you said last year that Matthew Nicks was an exciting and lovable coach, I would have told you you're an idiot. But this year, look at him.
I thought it was exciting and lovable when Hinkley was jumping up and down on the boundary after that Melbourne win on the weekend, actually. That's the most I've seen him move.
So...
ever.
Winning does things to clubs.
And Porter looking good. That Butters game was one of the most ridiculous games of football in wet weather I've ever seen a footballer play. He was playing dry football in the wet. He's turning and hitting targets. Everyone else was playing what you should be in the wet. Just get it forward, kick it along the ground. And he's picking 40-metre away targets on a right angle and hitting them. With that core in there, Port have a serious future. And it is a big decision for them. I've said it's laughable that there's still discussion about getting rid of Hinkley, and I do think it is when they've got a 7-game winning streak under him. But they've had a lot of Hinkley time. He is now, I think, he might be 1 year less than Scott and Longmire, but he's been there as long as anyone in the AFL right now. And Collingwood have had a lot of almost. So Port have had a lot of almost.
Yeah.
They haven't even made a grand final with Hinkley there.
I think Hinkley and Brad Scott are the two longest serving coaches consecutive games total.
Chris Scott?
No.
Oh,
Brad Scott, who haven't made a grand final.
Right, of course. Yeah, so it's going to be tough to justify it this year if they don't get there again.
I would honestly put it off till the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's totally fair, and they have to see where they end up because they're top 4 bound currently. They've beaten some really good teams, which means they've got a few...
I have them finishing second, I think.
A few easier teams to play, which is good for them. So, and that said, Collingwood haven't played Hawthorn, West Coast or North yet.
Watch them drop one.
Which is terrifying. But yeah, if Hinkley makes the grand final, he stays next year. But if he doesn't, it's a very exciting core for another coach to take over.
It is, but at the same time, we know how Hinkley is connected with the
very
players
loved
there.
at the club.
Well liked. So
even
who
other
knows?
coaches have talked about how much they respect him as a coach and a people manager. Like he was for a long time, the coaches used to vote him the coach they'd least like to coach against. So sometimes you see with teams, North was a great example, how much a club is only good because of who's in charge. Like Port might be one of those teams where a lot of their players who are good to okay are just okay. And it's a Hinkley in charge thing that makes them good. Look at McRae with the players at Collingwood. There's players at that club who look great. Every player at that team looks good.
Players who looked
Ordinary
shot
under
Buckley the year before.
And I think you saw it in Melbourne's premiership year. There's so many players that from that year now look ordinary as well. And the same was true last year for Geelong. There were so many players who prior to last year for Geelong were mentioned as like trade targets or list loggers who played vital parts in that premiership. And I think it's just that buy-in attitude. And Hinkley might have that from players that we're not recognising it for yet. So,
well, I doubt Miles Bergman plays like that.
Without a coach like Hinkley. Like
I could be underselling him.
There is passion in there from those players. Like the way Butters was crashing, he's a small boy.
That's just Butters, though. I don't think that's a Hinkley thing.
But
I think he's
and
unhinged.
players follow that. I think it's a combination of having people like Butters around you, Boak as well, and then a coach like Hinkley that the players like your Bergmans and even McEntee just throws himself everywhere. I think those players follow that. And at other clubs, they might not play that same way. Horn Francis, for someone who was constantly called soft at North last year, is a battering ram.
I think, I don't know. I wonder if, because Port have been surviving a few injuries up forward.
Yeah.
I wonder if Jeremy Finlayson playing out of his skin is the reason why they're doing well
Playing
at the moment.
so well, yeah.
Ruck and forward.
He has, since about halfway through last year, when Port Adelaide's form turned around, actually, he's been playing the best football of his career. And that's, he was forced to go play down back for a bit at GWS because he was playing so poorly up forward. And Port have just...
Well, to be fair, his issue at GWS was that he was inaccurate, and that has stayed.
It has. What did he kick 1-5 a couple of weeks ago or something? Or 3-5? Could have decimated, yeah.
Something along
but
those lines.
It is still a problem for him. Even on the weekend, they had chances to put Melbourne away and he was putting them all over the place. But his form is brilliant. And they do have, like we say, Marshall and Georgiades, which is, most teams would take two young forwards like that.
Georgiades did his ACL, didn't he?
Oh, I know, but I mean into the future.
Yeah.
Like, they've got that to move forward with as well as a really young midfield group. They're actually quite a young side compared to other top 8 teams.
I agree.
So they've got that going for them.
It is an interesting one. It's weird to see, obviously, Cameron's playing his career best footy with Geelong. I think Himmelberg has been playing his career best footy as well, and so is Finlayson, and none of them play together anymore.
That's true, and they were all there in that flag year.
Yeah.
And that was probably their previous... So, yeah, right. Yeah. That was probably their previous best years each that year.
Yeah.
And they all dropped off the year after. It is an interesting one to see.
I wonder what they would be like if they were all still together. It would be interesting, right?
It's surely less impactful, you'd think.
If they were in the form they were in together, GWS wouldn't be as
they
low as
wouldn't be as low as they are. You're right.
They would probably be in the top
scoring
8.
100 regularly.
Yeah.
I still think Himmelberg's a better
Even
backman.
with Himmelberg swinging back and forward.
I still think he's a better backman.
Oh, that's something that they weren't doing with him as much back then.
That's a new coach, though, isn't it?
No,
because it was before that, wasn't it? He took
Cameron.
over and said he was going to... Yeah, you're right. That's interesting. And speaking of backman, Jack Henry playing forward.
I hated watching it.
It's a thing you do when you don't have one of Hawkins or Cameron, right?
I'll say this. Somehow he's a better forward than his brother.
Kick the same amount of goals his brother's been kicking. It felt like a weird one. Like I said, when both Hawkins and Cameron are fit, and I feel like it's just that Geelong feel like they need to have a three-pronged attack. So when Rowan and his brother are both out, I don't know.
Is it because Jeremy Cameron gets up the ground, they want another target?
You don't
know. Need?
But he didn't get up the ground much, did he? He played the deepest forward he's played all year.
I don't know.
Anyway, my point was
strange.
Jack Henry's one of the best backmen going around, especially as an interceptor. I don't think you should be playing forward when you're struggling. The backline at Geelong needs all the help it can get. They're conceding consistent 100-point totals, which they haven't done for years.
It's due to personnel. Let's
Of
be
course,
real.
yeah.
But it is a little grim at the moment. I still think Geelong are very capable of making the finals. You seem to be.
I think they will very much struggle with the cattle they're not getting back until after the bye, knowing that they've got the Bulldogs the week before the bye, and then in the 6 weeks after they've got Melbourne, Brisbane in Brisbane,
there is
Port
a bit
in
of
Adelaide, and it's another someone I can't remember who it is. There's someone else in there that are all top, fighting for those top sides. So I think that they will really struggle. They have to go through that patch, winning 4 at least, maybe 5 out of those 6 games.
It's a 2-game buffer between the Bulldogs and Geelong now.
Yes.
So the top 6 are
2
edging
games
away.
Yeah.
I still think St Kilda drop down.
I agree.
Which is where it becomes vulnerable for someone to take their top in.
They struggled against GWS this week, who are,
Yeah.
we've seen, a very average side.
The question is, does anyone pop in from outside the 8? And honestly, I don't think so.
It's tough, isn't it? And Essendon's best football has been really good.
Yeah, but can they keep it up? Who knows?
Yeah, and the problem is, one, we've seen they've got a lot of injuries. We've talked about that already. They just beat Richmond, which are struggling.
The story is told just in the percentage. So obviously Adelaide and Geelong are entrenched by percentage in the 8. Essendon, Fremantle, Carlton and Sydney are the next 4 down, and their percentages are 102, 101, 99 and 98.
Big gaps to those 120s.
Yeah, the Bulldogs is low, but different story.
Theirs is low because they're not scoring much, but they're defending so well. And they really
which is
are.
what you want.
Their backline has been incredible this year. We already mentioned it, but it's a sight to behold. It's something we never thought we'd associate with the Bulldogs. It was always, even in their best years, was their weakness. Playing Zane Cordy at centre-half back in a flag.
Who is now centre-half forward in a top 6 side.
Yeah, there's a lot of swings and roundabouts. But yeah, good for them. I don't mind seeing the Bulldogs do well.
I've always had a soft spot for them. But
I think it's more fun watching Bevo do press conferences when they're doing well because he just says some wacky stuff. He's a weird man, that Bevo.
It's the same when he loses, though.
Yeah, it's true. He's entertaining.
Well, speaking of my theory of it's always more fun when you're winning, Ross Lyon this year has been great to watch while they're winning.
That's very true.
What happened after they got pumped by Adelaide? He came out and had
bristled and
So we'll take a mulligan on that one.
They got
pumped
monstered by Adelaide, who then went and got monstered by the Bulldogs. So.
If Ross Lyon continues a losing trend, it will seem like they're having less fun at St Kilda, won't it?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how Melbourne go over the next 5 or 6 weeks. They've got Freo this week, which I still don't think is much of a tester for them because it's in Melbourne. But
big one with Luke Jackson, though.
That's very true. But it's interesting that
I can't imagine Stephen May not having a go at him.
Outside of the Bulldogs in round 1, they haven't beaten a top 9 side.
I did see you talking about that. Their losses have been really small, though.
Oh, I do agree, but it's
the Essendon one's
they have
the
to
worst
start
one.
winning those, don't they? They have to start pushing those over the line.
Yes.
Freo is, I think, 10th, so they're the next highest team outside of Essendon that they'll have played, and that's this week. So they need to notch a pretty comfortable win, I think, at the MCG against Freo, and then get their season rolling. They're still a very good team. Oliver out's going to hurt them, but
who are the next couples? Freo, then Carlton, then Collingwood. So I'd pencil them in for at least 2 wins there.
Yeah, we'll see.
Who do you think they're losing to out of those 3?
Well,
obviously,
I
Collingwood.
think they could lose to all 3 of them.
No,
but we will see how they go. And that's the patch for them. And if they win 2 of those, then they're doing okay. But even then, they still haven't played any other teams outside of Collingwood who they lose to. That's another top 8 side they've dropped a game to. So their draw is leaving us in a confused position with them. But this is also where we were with Collingwood last year. And then they proved everyone wrong in the back half of the year by basically beating exclusively top 8 sides.
It would still pull out. So let's say they win 2,
Yeah,
lose
they
1.
just have enough wins to stay
They
in the
pull
8.
out 9
They're there.
and 4 at the bye,
Which is
and
fantastic.
You take it.
Yeah. So we'll see how they go. It's Gold Coast I want to make the finals. I'd like to see them slide in.
Well, they look like they're out, don't they?
But they keep showing up for most of a game against good teams and not quite getting it done. Brisbane was another great example. 3/4 time they were right in that game. And Brisbane kicked the last 6 goals in a row of that game.
Real ugly.
It was 1 goal at 3/4 time, and then it just met. It was level before that. Brisbane kicked the last goal before 3/4 time, 6 in a row. I don't even think Gold Coast scored. Which is not as bad as West Coast's 2 points an entire half against Hawthorn as they piled on 11 goals. 11 goals, 12 or something. It was like just ridiculous scoring.
It was a slaughter, and it's depressing.
And Hawthorn will be... The experience and confidence the kids who played really well in that game will get out of that is great for them. Great for their development.
Especially when you had players like Seamus Mitchell and Weddle.
Mitchell,
playing
Weddle,
really well.
Lewis. Lewis kicking 6. That's 4 of those in a row.
It's his highest tally ever, I think.
Yeah, so a lot of those players will obviously take a lot of confidence out of knowing they've got that in them at AFL level. After a few games this year where they would have been soundly beaten, which does get you down as a young footballer, I think knowing that they've got that in them, this is the biggest winning margin by a bottom place team post 6 or something rounds since Gold Coast beat GWS in GWS's first year, which you can kind of write off because that's a brand new team. It's the biggest margin between 2 set teams in the AFL when bottom 1. It's pretty embarrassing for West Coast, who are now so clearly bottom, it's going to be hard for them to get off.
Don't think they can.
I don't think they can. I don't see them beating Hawks or North again. Both teams have proven that they're significantly better than West Coast this year. It's a struggle. They're in a deep hole.
I mean, let's say post-bye they have all their players back. Obviously, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, no.
It's just they just look shot.
Even when those players are playing now, they look kind of gone. And it's one of those ones where I get the defence that sacking Simpson isn't going to uninjure those players, but it's also at a point now where they need a fresh start. He's been in charge for...
I think that has to come at the end of the season.
Oh, I agree with that.
I don't think sacking him now helps.
I don't think sacking him during the season helps at all, but I think by the end of the year, there's no point him staying there anymore.
I think that there needs to be... I was talking to our West Coast supporting friend about this. There has to be a full review. Nesbitt
10 years
in particular has to go.
10 years is a long time in football. Simpson's been there 10 years now. Coaches don't stay around that long often.
I would love to give Simpson the benefit of the doubt because I think he is a good coach and I think he seems like a nice person too. But there comes a point where 3 years of misery for the West Coast.
3 wins in the last 35 games.
West Coast, who am I? Fucking Dwayne Russell? For West Coast is awful and their supporters are feeling it. And I really hope that someone can come in and just give them some sort of freshness because when they play at the moment... Like, there were games, like against Geelong in particular. I remember watching that and thinking, West Coast have some things going for them here. I thought Darling and Allen played really well together in that game.
Losing Darling to that broken arm was brutal for them.
Even though I don't rate him too highly, Petrocelli was even all right.
He was good on the weekend.
Yeah. But the flashes are so few and far between.
And it's usually individual brilliance, not team structure. It's usually a player... playing
Jaden
their
Hunt trying
best
his heart
footballer
out.
best football for a quarter or a half, which shows that they've got some talent there, but it just keeps getting rotated in and out. And it's not good for the young talent they've got as well. Like
Bazzo shouldn't be playing the number 1 defender right now.
Greg Clark has won none of his first 15 games of AFL football or some stat like that, and he's had 4 100-point losses in there.
That's
Which
pretty brutal.
It just doesn't develop players properly. Like, you're not going to be able to become the best AFL player you could have become in an environment like that.
Yeah, that's brutal.
So,
has he not won a game yet?
I don't think so. Or he has and he's...
No.
No, he hasn't? Yeah, 15.
9 losses last year, 7 this year.
16 now. Okay, it's even worse. And then even Edwards, who started off with 7 out of 9 wins or something with his career, has had like 11 straight losses now. So... they're in a tough spot. I don't think there's a magic fix, but they've got 100,000 members and a whole wealth of success over the last 30 years. So they're not in any trouble, I don't think, as a football club. They're definitely not in trouble financially. It's just how do they fix it to stop Sumich writing whiplash articles every week in the newspaper? They appoint Sumich as coach.
No, you can't do that either.
You can't. There's no fix. And teams have been crap for a long time before. And I think 3 years sucks, but teams have been shit for longer than 3 years. Melbourne were a great example. North have been shit for more than 3 years now.
Yeah, they're on their 6th coach, technically.
Yeah. He almost pulled off keeping his positive win-loss record.
Almost.
He almost pulled it off. He just couldn't quite... Who have they got this week? He's got to win this week. Otherwise, it goes back into negatives, and then he's just really
I have no
struggling.
idea who North have this week.
Does it really matter? I think they're going to lose.
They're playing Collingwood.
Oh, no! Imagine if he pulls it out.
That would be very... No, it would be the opposite of Brett Ratton,
It'd be the opposite of Brett Ratton.
Yeah.
He'll beat Carlton, though.
No, just shut the fuck up. I don't want to talk about
You
it.
need to
Can you imagine Teague coaching Richmond and beating us? I'd cry.
Oh, poor Teague.
I think
He tried so hard.
Teague and Rutten very specifically
He was my
didn't...
mum. He was my mum's favourite footballer. She liked his hair.
I didn't pick Teague and Rutten for a reason.
No, I know.
They don't want the stigma of whatever happened with those two.
Absolutely. I think it's smarter from Richmond to have a fresh face
Yeah.
as the caretaker in the meantime. Whereas North, it was the opposite. They hunted Ratton pre-season just in case Clarkson had to miss a few games for whatever reason.
I thought he just went there because Clarkson and he were good friends during the...
I think Clarkson helped convince him to come in, but he wasn't there in the off-season. He came late.
Okay, I didn't
Because
know
they wanted someone who was experienced to be able to lead the group if needed. So that was a smart cover and it's worked out.
Who else do they have?
In their coaching staff, I have no idea. But at least having someone who's been sacked twice before and can deal with a club in turmoil, it probably isn't a bad idea. It's so hard to find assistant coaching staff these days.
Jordan Russell, Lee Adams, Josh Gibson, Damien Monkhurst.
Lee Adams was their caretaker last year, wasn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I did make a post on our Twitter the other day saying that while finding out that your coach was about to resign the next day via media is bad, it doesn't beat Damien Drum finding out that he was sacked as Fremantle coach.
It's the worst
by media.
video to watch. It makes me
He's
feel
in such a
so
good mood
sad.
when he comes in. He's being playful with the media, and they're like, how does it feel to be the first coach sacked in 1990, whatever year it was, 99? And he's like, what?
Oh, it hurts me. If you haven't seen it,
Is that
watch
true? Is
it.
it? Oh,
But
it's so hard to watch. The poor guy.
I haven't heard anything yet.
He was. Oh, it's the first I've heard about it. Oh, Damien. Anyway,
Oh, brutal.
that's probably a fair place to leave it. you
Yeah,
can find us at always.
I'm cringing.
Especially if you want to watch that video. At the Back Pocket AU
Yeah, voice
on
on
Twitter.
the website.
Imagine that's just you go to the website and it just pops up in your face.
I'm redirecting the whole website to just that video of Damien Drum.
But we will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Ciao.